Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai, hara mai, welcome to the University of Auckland Early Childhood Seminar Series. We'll begin our time together with karakia. Me inoi tātou. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa. Haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation by Dr. Andrea Delaune, who is a senior lecturer in the School of Social and Cultural Studies at the Faculty of Education at Te Whāriki o Waitaha, the University of Canterbury. If questions arise for you during the presentation that you would like to ask Andrea, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and she will respond to them at the end of her presentation. You can also use the chat function throughout the presentation to connect with each other and the panelists. After the seminar, a recording will be available on our Early Childhood Seminar Series YouTube channel. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Andrea, or Andy, Delaune today. Andy graduated from the Christchurch College of Education in 2001 and has over 20 years of experience working in early childhood settings, most of these with infants and toddlers. She completed her master's degree in 2015 with a focus on gifted education for infants and toddlers in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and in 2020 completed her PhD. Her doctoral research utilised the concept of attention to critique neoliberal approaches to early childhood education and to question the increasing application of neuroscientific explanations of the child in educational policy and pedagogical practice. Andy is currently the co-lead of the Infant and Toddler Network and co-president of OMEP Aotearoa. As an early childhood ethicist, her work with these groups supports actions of advocacy to advance te tiriti o Waitangi, address issues of social justice and sustainability, and enable teachers to recognise and respond to the agency of children within their everyday teaching practices. Andy's most recent publications include Wellbeing for Infants and Toddlers in Education and Care, a book she co-edited with Gloria Quinones from Monash University, and another sole-authored book in the Contesting Early Childhood series titled Iris Murdoch and Early Childhood Education, Enhancing Attention and Moral Vision in Pedagogy. Nau mai, hara mai, Andy. It is a pleasure to have you with us today and to have the opportunity to learn more about your work. I'll now hand over to you to share with us your presentation, Feeling Worthy of Love, Examining Infant Wellbeing Through Kaiako Practice. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Tēnā te mihi ki a koe, Justine. Thank you for that wonderful and humbling and kind introduction to this presentation. Tēnā te mihi ki a koutou ko tae mai ki tēnei huine. It's lovely for you all to join this presentation, and I hope that by the end of it, you will understand a little bit more about this research project, about my own examination and positioning of the concept of love within infant pedagogies, which has application for all early childhood education ages, so not just necessarily infants. However, the work itself, as you will see from the next slide, is done within the context of infant early childhood settings, where kaiako are joining me in this research to be able to extend understandings of the concept of love. So the title for the presentation today is Feeling Worthy of Love, Examining Infant Wellbeing Through Kaiako Practice. Before we make a start, I think it's important for me to offer just a little bit of a whakamihi and positioning of myself a little bit for you to understand who I am, where I come from, why I might sound like I have a bit of an accent, and be able to talk to you a little bit more so you understand my orientation into this research and my focus for that research from that orientation. So ko ai au e tū ake nei, ko Magu toku mauna, ko Santa Clara toku awa, ke tawhanauna o kina honona o Amerika, ahakoa ka noho ki te koro ai o Aoraki Anaine. Ko Andy Delaune toku ingoa, he pūkenga mātua hau ki te whare wanago o Waitaha. tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So lovely to meet you all. I was originally actually born in the States. I came here when I was 8 years old, but I still have a strong accent, as you can hear, because my dad is from Louisiana and has a very broad accent. Here are some of the important people in my life. I don't have a photo of my father here, which I obviously need to change, but this is where I come from. I am an early childhood researcher currently, but I am an early childhood practitioner. I spent 20 years teaching tamariki in early childhood settings. 13 of those was with infants and toddlers. So I have the great privilege of being able to stand on that experience of being an early childhood teacher in order to extend what I believe is important knowledge and research around what it means to be an early childhood teacher, and also the incredible knowledge and expertise that our kaiako have within their practice. You'll hear that a little bit more as we go through the presentation. But to make a start, I think it's important for us to be able to understand, why would I even talk about love? What is the point of talking about love when there are so many tensions around the concept of love within early childhood practice? Tensions related to professionalism, tensions related to neoliberal understandings of what emotions might mean within our practice. So why would I even bother talking about love? Well, I started off because there is a very specific sentence within Te Whāriki that grabbed me, pulled me in, and made me think a little bit more about, what does this mean in terms of our practice as kaiako within early childhood settings, specifically with infants in early childhood settings. And this sentence is, infants are learning that they are worthy of love. And the full sentence reads, infants are learning to trust and that they are worthy of love. So that particular sentence resonated with me, and it brought up this question for me specifically, which is, how are teachers, how are kaiako supporting infants to learn that they are worthy of love? If infants are learning this, and kaiako are the teachers within an educational context, and it's from the early childhood curriculum, then what does that mean for our pedagogy? What does that mean for our practice? So there are three key areas that are going to be covered in this presentation, and this can give you a bit of an overview to know what to expect. So the first area is why feeling love matters for infant well-being and development, and why that matters for early childhood teaching. So that section is going to be pretty much around justification for why we would even bother talking about the concept of love. The next section is going to be specifically focused on the research findings. So it'll give you some insights into the research itself, where several kaiako were working alongside me to be able to theorize about the concept of love within their practice. The final section is actually broken into two different sections. The first section is specifically identifying practical strategies that came out of the research for embedding love and pedagogy of love into your everyday practice. And then the next part is about the implications for advocacy that we all have as kaiako, to be able to expand our understanding of what it means to advocate for the right to feel love, for feeling worthy of love that infants can feel within early childhood settings. So let's look at the first key area, why feeling love matters for infant well-being and development, and why that matters for early childhood teaching. So obviously that question arises again, why would I even bother focusing on love? Love is one of those really difficult topics to talk about. However, love is not just something that is nice to have. It's been evidentially and scientifically proven that feelings of love are not only important in life, they are important to your growth, your development, and your general well-being. So love is therefore a fundamental human need. Love enhances our feelings of well-being. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel better about the world, which then has ripple effects for other ways in which we actually perceive and interact with others in the world. It also actively contributes to healing and to long life. So those who have experienced love within their lives, those who are experiencing those positive feelings of love, that has ramifications not just on an emotional level, but on an actual physical level in terms of the healing that it engenders and the longevity that it helps you to have in your life. It also helps you to feel a sense of worth. So it helps you to be able to feel like I matter in this world. It enhances your own ability to see others in the world more clearly, a heightened compassion and empathy. And it helps you feel supported. So these are some of the research findings that have proven that love actually makes quite a substantive impact upon life. The other one is the Harvard longitudinal study of adult development. So if you don't know about this study, go and have a look at this study. It's very interesting. So it started in 1938 and it had 724 young men who started out, and it followed them all the way through their lives. So at the moment they're octogenarians, so they're in their 80s, maybe getting close to their 90s by now. And one of the key findings that they have found at the end of the lifespan is that predominantly for these people, the key thing that they pointed to that made their lives feel like it was worthwhile was that they had love in their lives. That was the meaning for having a life well lived. Not only that, but they looked back on their lives and they were able to say, when I had love in my life when I was younger, when I was a young child, and I had those wonderful relationships, I remember those and they made a difference for me over the course of my life. So we know that to some extent from the Dunedin longitudinal study that strong reciprocal relationships in children's young lives have ripple effects across the lifespan. So this is looking the other way at the people who have had those lives to be able to look back and go, yes, I agree, that made a difference for me. So not only is love a fundamental human need, it's part of a framework of rights for the infant and for all children through the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Here, identified within the preamble of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, love is identified as an aspect of the family environment, the family atmosphere, that is important in order for the child to realize their full and harmonious development. Love is not only identified as through research as important, but recognized as part of the conditions in which the rights of the child should be adherent to. So, United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child identifies that the family environment is where the atmosphere of love should occur. And that's a traditional area for warm and loving relationships in childhood with family and expanded family connections. Yet contemporary life for infants often involves wider relationships beyond the family. Early childhood settings are increasingly becoming a regular feature of infants' daily lives. And it's important to note that familial relationships should be understood in its broadest sense. And biological connection is only one of those connections to which we have with family or people who make us feel like family within our lives. So, just a brief rounding up on some of the points so far. If love is important in infancy, and love is a part of what an infant should rightfully experience in their lives, then we need to ask ourselves this question. Where are the places, the regular places in an infant's life that an atmosphere of love can occur? So, as I said before, early childhood education is increasingly becoming an everyday part of infants' lives. Recent statistics of infants' involvement in early childhood settings in Aotearoa have identified a marked jump in participation since the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2023, 1 out of every 2-year-olds and 2 out of every 3-year-olds attended early childhood settings, but that's been growing. And furthermore, hours of attendance are growing. So not only are more infants becoming involved in early childhood settings, but they're spending longer in these settings. And so that raises some questions for us as kaiako about the implications for early childhood education as that expanded form of familial connection. Because the reality is that infants are involved in early learning settings for extended durations of time. And those settings are the extension of the home. And with that holds the implications of the right of the child to experience an atmosphere of love that the traditional family environment would provide. And returning to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, it's not simply because infants are increasingly attending early childhood settings for longer periods of time. It's the legal role that these environments need to be upholding within defending the rights of the child. Article 3.1 identifies that the best interests of the child should be the primary consideration of all actions. And the best interests of the child need to be promoted by anyone, whether it be the public or the private social welfare institutions, as they are, by extension, party to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child through the government. So I ask, is this not a responsibility of the early childhood environment? So let's take another look at who should be following this advice. Undertaken by private or public welfare institutions. And although I agree there are tensions between the educational focus and the welfare focus of early childhood education, that doesn't divorce the dimensions of care and well-being that are associated with the welfare of individuals that are wrapped into the responsibilities of the kaiako within the early childhood setting, and the management of the kaiako within the early childhood setting. And this implicates that early childhood education settings are institutions, are spaces where the needs of the child, the best interests of the child, is the welfare of the child, and that we need to act in those best interests. And as discussed earlier, love is within the best interests of the child. It's fundamentally, empirically, and evidentially proven to have benefits for life, for health, and for well-being. This is also reflected within the Child and Youth Strategy, which up until recently was called the Child and Youth Wellbeing Strategy. It may have lost the term well-being in the title, but the dimensions of life experience that are necessary to encouraging well-being are not gone from the content of the policy, including, as I've identified here, the key, first, and outcome that children in Aotearoa, New Zealand are loved. This policy guidance is an additional justification for the interconnections between love and well-being. Consequently, I assert that as feeling loved, this returns us back to Article 3.2, which states that all individuals legally responsible to the child must ensure that the child is protected as is necessary to their well-being. And as we've identified, love is fundamentally connected to well-being. So when the child, the infant, is in our care in early childhood settings, we are legally responsible for them. Therefore, we are also legally responsible for their well-being. And if well-being equates to feelings of love enhance well-being, then we need to have a conversation about what that means within our early childhood pedagogy. So, I assert that as feeling loved is intricately linked to overall well-being, and as people responsible for infants' well-being while they're in our care, it's our job to consider the role of love within teaching as a dimension of well-being. We've covered a lot in this presentation so far, so I'm just going to do a little recap. Feeling loved is important to consider in early childhood settings, because if love is important in infancy for well-being, and if, according to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, we're responsible for children's well-being while they're in our care, and infants are spending more time in early childhood settings as an extension of the home, and children should grow up in an atmosphere of love, then we have a responsibility to consider whether the infant is feeling loved within the context of the early childhood environment. So how does this equate to Te Whāriki? Well, obviously, we've got some understandings about Te Whāriki in relation to those thoughts around the extension of the home. Because if early childhood are extensions of the home, then parents trust that the early childhood environment will provide respectful relationships that encourage warmth and acceptance, that that's the norm, that that's what they'll experience within their space. And of course, we return to that key phrase that piqued my interest in the first place, that infants are learning that they are worthy of love. Within Te Whāriki, this is clearly stated. So if infants are learning that, then what are kaiako doing in their teaching to support that understanding, that growing understanding that the infant is worthy of love? So this led to the research project. This research study was entitled Worthy of Love, and it's specifically focused on how we understand the practices of love within our teaching. And these were the 3 questions that I wanted to address within this research. How are infants learning that they are worthy of love? Specifically, what are teachers' understandings of that love? And what do infant teachers do to teach infants that they're worthy of love? To take that further, we needed to consider carefully what we were meaning by love, because love is one of those nebulous concepts that can be just as individually understood as there are people out in the world. So we drew on that. We drew on an understanding of love as a concept, something that we were growing an understanding of through this research and through our examination of it. That we were understanding love as a concept that could inform a professional teaching philosophy, which all teachers have and hold dear. They have values and they have beliefs that are important for their pedagogy, and it would help inform that. And also helped examine love as a moral pedagogical concept to develop a grounded theory of love in practice. I drew on this from my own research that's very focused on Iris Murdoch's philosophy. So as you heard before, Iris Murdoch is one of the philosophers that informs my thinking quite a lot. And her ideas about moral philosophy being something that is lived was important to me in this research, because I see teaching as an inhabited philosophy. I see teachers as philosophers that live pedagogy, that live practice, and examine their understandings of that practice by living it. They deepen their conceptual understandings of what it means to be loving, caring, considerate, graceful within the lived experience of their practice. And so examining this research must include not just my voice, but the people who live it every day, the kaiako who live this practice every day, because it is something that is lived, it's inhabited, this philosophy, in order to understand the pedagogy of love. So it was necessary for me to have teachers keenly involved in this research, to be able to be living it alongside me, to have their voice maximized in this research. And I was really, really lucky, because I started out this research thinking, oh, I'll probably engage with about 5 teachers. That's probably as many as I'm going to end up having. But I was fortunate enough that there were enough people who were so interested in the topic, I ended up with 16. So 16 wonderful people who ended up being part of this research project with me, 14 of which chose to be identifiable, and 2 of which who chose to not. And all the parents in the videos of the infants that you see were also happy for their infants to be identifiable, because they were passionate about this project as well. They were interested in, yes, what does love mean in early childhood education? So there's me collecting data, as you can see, a little bit about the research itself. Every setting was recorded for 3 to 4 days, just straight recorded for the whole day. It was a fully automatic setup. I wasn't there. It was just like a little camera on the wall that was recording, so that I didn't impact or impede any of the practices by having my physical presence there. The teachers were able to review the recordings and give more insights into what they believed about what was going on in their practice. And then they chose 5 snippets to share with me. So they directed what they wanted to share. And that was important for me, because they were the lived philosophers of the research, to be able to deepen our understandings. And then we followed up with a simulated recall interview to be able to deepen those understandings together, which you'll see in a couple of minutes. Because I've talked a lot, and now it's time for my participants to talk. So this is the time for the kaiako to be able to speak. Before we move into those videos, these are the areas that were identified that came out of enacting a loving pedagogy. You can see there are several areas, several key themes that were necessary to highlight as all informing what it means to enact a loving pedagogy. Due to the time restraints of this presentation, we're only going to focus on 3: responsiveness and attunement, time and presence, and playfulness and joy. So with responsiveness and attunement, many of our participants identified this theme as important, because of the ways in which responsiveness encouraged infants to feel worthy of love. And you can see some of the findings here. For example, Sasha wrote, I knew that he wanted to be picked up. She had a responsive attunement to that infant. Just picking him up and putting him on my knee, and he was happy after that. So there was an interconnection between responsiveness and attunement that supported the infant to feel that they were worthy of love. Let's listen to Lana. Lana's going to give you a little explanation, and there'll be a video associated.
You can see that he's wanting that cuddle too.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me how you feel that he's wanting that cuddle. I mean, I see it, but
Yeah.
I want to hear your words.
Yeah, I think it's the way that he kind of, and I think it's the way that I lead a cuddle with the baby too. Is like I'll gently kind of put my hand on their back, not forcing them, but kind of that guiding of like, will you come cuddle? And then he, in response, completely flopped.
He's like,
yes, I really want that cuddle. And then it's, like I stayed still and let the cuddle keep happening, and, snuggled with him and just kind of waited patiently to see when he was ready for the end of that cuddle, and it just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
And it was really, really, really loving and really sweet. Yeah.
So adding into, this developing theory that you've got around worthiness of love and leadership.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that in relation to worthiness of love.
And I think, and it's a different moment from, the ones we saw before, where a child very voluntary. Is like, I want you to hug me. I want to cuddle. I know what I want, and I want it from you. This was a little bit different because it was something that I was leading, but I was still ensuring that he was an equal partner in that loving embrace, because there's still that sense of autonomy there, and hopefully I've enriched this through other interactions that I have with him too, that if he didn't want that cuddle, there would, I'd be looking for visual and physical cues of he might go like this, or not quite, or it might be a quick, and I've only got a very gentle hand on his back, so it could be a very quick one and then very quickly back, and that would be the end of the cuddle. But as we're also leaders as teachers too, and we're teaching children what loving embraces look like, so giving him the opportunity to have those, leading with confidence will make it more likely that they also too want that loving embrace from you, and then from there know how to implicate that for themselves or create that for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think in that, just wondering, another little element to showing an infant worthy of love, that you're open, there's an
open
openness,
to receive that,
but also maybe like a poised responsivity. Look, I'm poised to be able to move in the way that you're going to show me you need to move.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think so. You've spoken very eloquently. I don't think I could have said it. But no,
I've been mulling on it over a couple of weeks now. So I'm going to be developing these things. But it seems like people. It's this space of it's almost anticipation, but not quite. It's desire to want to be there. But there's a poise to it.
Kind of it's only going to be if you want it to be.
I'm on balance, but I'm ready to go in either way. Show me where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. And that openness, that was a really good one too. You've got to be open to receive that. And if you're not open to receive that, then what communication are they giving to them that when they want to express that love and it's closed.
So for Alana, gently putting your hand on her back, not forcing but guiding, waiting patiently to see when they're finished with that cuddle, and ensuring that they're an equal partner in the loving embrace. Let's hear from Rachel.
And so in that moment I knew that she was going to need a bottle soon, but I knew that if I put her down, it wasn't the right time for her to go down, so I was just waiting for Siobhan to finish up. So what I did was grab a book and just sit with her, and I wanted her to become familiar with my voice as well, because obviously she had a lead kaiako marisa, so I wanted her to have a bit of time with me to become familiar with me, and she was just sort of tapping at the book and showing me and then trying to close it.
This thing opens and shuts, it's amazing.
But that book and that time just sort of helped her to feel like I was supporting her, and I was listening, I was hearing her cues, and then when Siobhan was finished, I got her to make a bottle for me.
Oh, very nice, very nice. So tell me a little bit about how you feel this is showing this little beautiful wee one. They're worthy of love.
That's about me coming into, so we have a pēpi space, so I came into the pēpi space with her, and I was just down at her level, just interacting with her and playing with her, and then just seeing what she was interested in and chatting to her about what she was looking at. Then when I was feeling that she was getting ready for her bottle, I just said, can I, pick you up, and put my arms out to her and just sat with her. And I knew that she was needing that bottle. So instead of me popping her back down and upsetting her, I just knew in that moment I just needed to be with her. So I looked around, and then that's when I found that story, and I was like, okay, let's read that story together until I can make that bottle for you.
Absolutely. So do you think that there's some part of worthiness of love that is not just always responding, but maybe anticipating some needs going on?
Yeah, I think for me, I really look for the infant's cues, and if I can meet those straight away or in a timely manner, so that they can trust us, that they know that their needs are going to be met straight away, or when we can, as quick as we can, so that you know, that they feel safe with us, they feel this real sense of belonging in that space. And that was I think it was his second day with us, and straight away, like I said to Marissa when she came in front, her cues, I can read them so clearly, so quickly, you know. So it's about me and Marissa working together to meet those needs for Izzy as best we can. And that week we were just learning all about her, but she was feeling comfortable to let us know pretty soon.
So for Rachel, she knew that she was going to need a bottle. She read those cues. She said that the cues were very open to her. She wanted her to become familiar. So keeping up that responsiveness and enhancing that attunement further. Now we're going to look a little bit at time and presence. And this was a massive theme within the research. Basically, that time is needed in order to be able to support infants to feel that they're worthy of love. Let's hear from Alice.
And also that acknowledgement that it will be responded to in a positive way. You know, it would be so easy to say, oh, I just need to get set up outside, you know, we'll go out soon, but I just want to get this done, kind of thing. But yeah, just giving him that time. Like, and also just that one-on-one time together outside. He really thrives on that. And I think, you know, giving him that my time, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I can't think of the word. But just me and him together, you know, that one-on-one time, shows him that he's important and he is worthy of my time and my love. And
so time builds that connection and that relationship and understanding of cues and placing you as my priority. And it'd be easy to say, we'll go out soon, but they wanted to show him that he was important through time. Let's hear from
Therefore, the word of love comes in that you are how do I say, someone that you think somebody will care for you and love you. You can feel it because you do understand me. And this whole process needs time for a kaiako to spend time together to know the child. So if I don't spend time with her, or not enough quiet one-to-one time with her, I don't think I can read all these small little cues. I think this is really important, that maybe in a very busy environment, if I have 20 or 24 months little ones, maybe 23 months little one come and join us, because I have to attend to each of them, then I don't think I will have time to get to know our new friend. So by giving me some quiet time, we have quite a good arrangement that I spend at least half an hour with her alone. That makes a lot of makes a lot of big difference, because it's not just I'm getting to know her, she's getting to know me too.
So for Marie, time is important because it shows that someone will care for you and love you, and it takes time to do that. That if she doesn't get the chance to do that, then she might not be able to read up on all those small little cues, but that goes both ways. The infant is learning the cues of the kaiako, as well as the kaiako learning the cues of the infant, and that needs time to be able to show that infant, to be able to enhance that feeling of feeling worthiness of love. So the last thing we're going to look at here is playfulness and joy. And again, this was a key area that came out, that it wasn't just about being serious, that it was also about having fun and being playful to be able to support infants, that they were feeling worthy of love. Let's hear from Ange.
So
I see him lifting up his arms again.
And trying to, using those simple words to actually acknowledge what he's doing, and try and keeping him encouraging to continue to he doesn't usually laugh this much. Like it was just such a beautiful moment. I was just like, oh.
Really meaningful.
Yeah. And it was just a nice time, just the two of us. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, oh, you're just too cute for words. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Time is I think is a real big thing. Mm-hmm. You know, to develop that loving relationship. Yeah. And and you know, just having fun and showing interest in what he's doing. And
so this was interesting because it was an intersection between time and playfulness, because time was needed to be able to have the space to be able to enjoy time with each other and to be able to have fun. And for this little pēpi, it was more meaningful as well, because what it meant was that fun was an opportunity for connection, for being able to extend that feeling of worthiness of love and build a stronger relationship. Let's hear from Courtney.
I just like this video because it's, you know, it's everyone. It's not just one child, and you can show multiple children at once that are worthy of your time and that you can have fun with them and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Cool. That's fine. Yeah, no worries. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing in this video that you think demonstrates to the infants, because it's more than one in here, as you were saying, that demonstrates to all these infants that they're worthy of love?
Sharing my time between them. So obviously they're like, oh, they're having fun, we all need to gather around, but making sure I'm spreading it, you know, what I'm doing with all of them. Yeah. Not focusing on one. I'm trying to make sure everyone's involved and that everyone can take part. And if you notice in the end of the video, Alexis is on the other side of the thing, and she's coming over and she's standing from the side, and I'm like, oh, I think Alexis wants to come and have a cuddle too. So we're inviting her in so that no one's left out and that everyone's worthy to play and have fun together.
And one of the reasons Courtney chose this is because it was the opportunity to show multiple children that they are worthy of love at one time and having fun with them. So she really wanted to reinforce that idea of the playfulness, the joy, the fun that can be had that while you're showing an infant that they're worthy of love. And in fact, that it actually helps that infant to feel that they're worthy of love when you are enjoying times with them like that and being playful. So again, these were all the areas that we covered within this presentation. So let's have a look at some practical strategies for embedding love into the everyday routines and relationships in your own practice that come out of this research. So in relation to responsiveness and attunement, you can practice what could be called a wait and watch form of attunement, where you can intentionally pause, you can observe before intervening, and you can allow infants the space to lead the interactions, sitting nearby rather than picking them up immediately. This is all stuff we know, right? We practice it every day, which is why we needed the lived philosophers of teachers that are living this every day. But the dimension that we don't often talk about is the way in which this actually supports a feeling of worthiness of love. That feeling loved in infants comes from our ability to be able to practice these forms of responsiveness and attunement. And that it truly sees infants as a unique moral subject. It sees them as having that agency or autonomy. And that when we wait patiently, we are not just seeing the infant in front of us, but we're actually letting go of some of that control and power that we might have as a kaiako to allow the child's reality guide the interaction rather than potentially an adult agenda. So at time and present, obviously I am indebted to Alison Clark's work of slow pedagogies within this as well, and our philosophies align very tight. But we need to create protective moments of uninterrupted presence during our routines. Even short, spontaneous moments of connection can have lasting impacts when we are fully present for that person in front of us. And being fully present is an act, a moral act of attention. It's a part of our moral discipline, which we can practice further as kaiako. that we can cultivate presence, not as a technique, but a way of honoring the worth of the child. And with playfulness and joy, we can follow the lead in the child's interest, the infant's interest, and we can respond with enthusiasm and delight. And those moments foster trust and connection, and they help children feel safe and loved. And it also reflects a philosophical position that identifies that beauty and goodness can be intertwined. And beauty is aesthetic, beauty is perceptual, but beauty is something that we come to grow and know and understand. And that playfulness can become a moral expression of our love, an imaginative way of affirming that child's being. It's not just frivolous. Playfulness is a serious form of relational ethics. I have some extra areas for you here in terms of areas we didn't get a chance to have a look at within this presentation, with modeling and peer learning, that we can demonstrate and show our infants how to show love and feelings of worthiness of love to others. And that can be part of the enhancement of the child's moral imagination. And of course, whānau and community are incredibly important within this form of pedagogy, because enacting an atmosphere of love is something that happens in the home environment. So it's important to have those conversations with whānau about how love is expressed and grown within their home environment, to honor whānau practices as a way of seeing the child within the full cultural and relational context, and responding with ethical integrity. What does that mean for what you can do as early childhood kaiako within the early childhood setting? Well, it's important, I think, to be able to show the infant that they're worthy of love. You need to be advocates for the infant's right to feel loved. We need to challenge deficit views of infants as passive or underdeveloped to be able to enhance that understanding that they can guide us. We need to promote relational pedagogies that center that emotional attunement and the agency of the infant. We need to resist pressures for efficiency, standardization, that will take away our opportunity to have time-rich, attuned interactions with infants and with tamariki within early childhood settings. And we all know about those happening right now within this context. We need to argue for policy and curriculum frameworks that reflect infants' capacity for reciprocity, for autonomy, and their right to be able to have enhanced moral development, and our capability to be able to take that further. And I also agree, it's not just advocacy. We need strong policy guidance to be able to do this. We need policy guidance that helps us, and regulations that help us to be able to have funded professional development opportunities to support team dynamics, to enhance connectivity between our team so that we can work together to enhance feelings of love for infants. We need appropriate ratios to be able to share our time with the infants in our care. We need support for the emotional labor aspects of the kaiako role and the moral decision-making practices that are reflective of the complex relational ethics within the early childhood setting. We need smaller group sizes, and we need more teachers per child for those strong reciprocal relationships to be established and maintained. We need sufficient spaces for calm, quiet, and intimate interactions that are dedicated to being able to learn each other's cues. And we need recognition of teachers as ethical professionals, which is the strongest thing that I think came out of this research, is how incredibly knowledgeable and what wonderful expertise our kaiako have who are practicing in early childhood settings with infants in their care. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm very pleased to see that I was right on time with what I thought I'd be. If you want to email me, my email is there. Feel free to scan the code. You'll find me on the UC website. And thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Kia ora. Thank you, Andy. You've given me and our seminar series audience a huge amount to think about. I'm also incredibly appreciative of the videos that you've been able to share into the kaiako, tamariki and their whānau for giving consent and assent for that sharing, because the video clips really help to bring what you've shared to life. So in your presentation, you focused on 3 areas. So why feeling loved matters for infant wellbeing and development, and you provided a really compelling rationale for considering the place of love in early childhood settings and in early childhood teaching. And then some lovely examples of what loving pedagogy looks and feels like in everyday teaching. It's so powerful to hear from kaiako themselves what that means for them. And then, finishing up with some of those practical strategies for how we can embed love into everyday routines and relationships. And each of those, I think, could actually have been a seminar on their own. I'm sure you've got much more you could talk about in relation to each of them. So I appreciate how much you've managed to fit and how much valuable information you've managed to fit into a relatively short time. So to get our conversation started, we do have one question in the Q&A, and this person said it's a very interesting seminar. I wholeheartedly agree. And they're keen on hearing more about time and presence. And was there any sense of kaiako being time poor? And how did kaiako manage their time?
Sure. Absolutely. So I think that definitely time and presence was one of the key. It was the first theme that I identified because it was the one that was most clear, basically, was that time and presence is incredibly important to be able to show an infant that you're worthy of love, show anyone that you're worthy of love. You've got to give them your time and your presence, I think, to be able to do that. I think that I was fortunate enough to be in settings where teams worked really well together. They had pretty good ratios, and therefore they were able to, give that time, give that love. But they weren't so far down the track that there's to be exceptional ratios or anything like that. So these aren't the outliers. These aren't the ones that everyone's like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we had all of these conditions? They highlighted their capability to be able to do this because they had strong team ethics. And their team ethics were that if this infant needs care right now, then that's what we're going to do. And we'll make space for that to be able to occur. And we'll all carry the load for it to happen. So in terms of time poor, I think everyone's probably time poor in some respects or another. But these kaiako were able to work in ways because they worked together so well to be able to take that further.
Yeah. And I think, everybody kind of always feels like we haven't quite got enough time, but it is a huge factor when teams can actually work collaboratively together and they have that shared drive. And I guess that kind of leads me into another question, which was that time and presence was certainly something that the kaiako in your study identified as contributing to enacting loving pedagogy, as well as responsiveness and attunement, and that playfulness and joy, which I think is so important. But in addition to all of those things, you've also noted that we need strong policy guidance to promote and protect those aspects of pedagogy and the need for teacher advocacy. So do you have any specific examples of how you've seen kaiako be advocates for enacting a pedagogy of love to maybe help our audience find their voices?
Absolutely. I think one of the best ways that kaiako were advocates were the ways in which they were vocal with their communities, their local communities, whānau communities, who, when you think about it, in some ways, every single whānau member that walks into your space is a voter. And they have an ability to go out and to advocate for you on your behalf as an early childhood teacher because of the important work you do. I've had several friends who have recently had babies who have put them into early childhood settings who have gone, I never realized until now exactly how important that work is. And I was like, great. Now go and speak for us on this policy that's being changed, on this regulation that's being changed, et cetera, et cetera. And I think if we can continue to do that, if we can mobilize people because it is their infants and they care about them, and they want to have strong policy to be able to keep supporting the excellent practice. If we stay silent about that, we can't change as much as we can change by being not invasive, but certainly vocal about changes that might delimit us from being able to enact the best practice that we think we can.
Yeah, I agree. I think whānau are probably the best advocates that we can have. And like you say, often families don't realise the complexity of early childhood teaching work and the value of early childhood teaching work until their own children are the recipients of it. And so when they can articulate that to others. But I also think we, as kaiako, have to be maybe a little bit less shy about hiding our work, because often we're like, oh no, we just do it. And it comes back to that nice ladies who love little children. And I think we need to, as you've been saying, really forefront the fact that we are ethical professionals who have a really wide body of knowledge, and that we are intentional in the way that we apply it in our practice.
Absolutely. And that's why I drew on that concept of ascesis by Iris Murdoch, that concept of an inhabited philosophy, because I do believe that teachers are living philosophers of early childhood pedagogy. They live it every day. They reflect on it, they grow through it, they refine moral concepts that are important to pedagogy in ways that someone sitting in an office can't possibly imagine, because they're living it every day. And so I think advocating and pushing that forward, that no, this is incredible expertise that they have. It's not just, for lack of, all the things that people say, it's not just babysitting. It really isn't, If you've got a critically reflective, ethical professional in a teacher who can grow our understandings further of what is of value in early childhood education, listen to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I must admit, something I do say often to my students is, I think it would be a very powerful thing for many of the people who are driving some of these policy changes to actually come and do the work of an early childhood kaiako for a day or 10, and actually to understand for themselves more deeply the complexity of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Takes humility to do that, I think. And our politicians need to understand the value of humility and their ability to develop policy. And if they want to keep developing policy that will make a lasting impact for our nation and for the world, then they need to be able to enact policy that is meaningful. As I've reflected, love is incredibly important across the lifespan, both ways. People who are older say it's good across the lifespan, and people who are younger show it's good across the other way. Yeah. This needs to be maximized as much as possible to be able to keep that going.
Yeah, and I have highlighted one of the quotes from your from the Harvard longitudinal study about that early loving relationships are a lasting source of strength.
Yeah.
And that they're so important. So
yeah.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koe. Many thanks, Andy, for your presentation and for our discussion this afternoon. Thank you for shining a light on the intangible and difficult to measure aspects of teaching, such as love, intuition, and attention, but which make teaching such a complex and meaningful vocation, and which have such significant implications for the well-being of our tamariki. And I am sure that what you've shared is going to be a source of ongoing reflection and discussion amongst our early childhood seminar series community, as we consider further how our practice supports the well-being of our youngest tamariki. So anō, ngā mihi nui ki a koe. Many thanks to you, Andy. We so appreciate your time and your sharing with us today. To our early childhood seminar series audience, if you wish to share or revisit this presentation, please check out our early childhood seminar series YouTube channel. The recording of this seminar will be available in a couple of days. And also keep an eye on your inbox for the flyer and registration information for any future seminars. Thank you again for joining us today, and we'll close with karakia. Me enoi tātou. Kua mutu a mātou mahi mō tēnei wā. Mana kitea mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau, ai o ki te aorangi. Take good care, everyone. Ka kite anō.
Thank you.
Thank you.